Welcome to Solve It Like a Marketer. I'm Steven Hobé. Today I'll be chatting with Maria Molinari, a media composer, as part of my series on making it as a freelancer. Now, I've known Maria for years, and she has some great insights into both making it as a composer and a business of one. If you like this video, please subscribe and don't go away. Thanks for joining me, Maria.
My pleasure.
So let's dive right in. This is a fascinating topic. You're in the world of composition, which is so broad and multifaceted. But let's, I guess, take a step back and go back to the beginning for you. Sort of what led you to the field of music and then subsequently composition.
Okay. Well, I was always in music. I come from a musical family. I have aunts who were music teachers. And so the first thing was, I had to be in choirs. So that's where I started from when I was a little kid. And I was in the Toronto Children's Chorus eventually, which was really exciting. So I had an idea of the possibility of pursuing music as an actual career, and it was just so much a part of me. I was always involved in some way. Played the flute in high school, did played the classical guitar. Eventually, started that in high school, and it really couldn't see myself following any other stream other than music. So I went to the Faculty of Music where I was doing a theory degree, and I was always interested in composition. But as you know, it's a lot of effort to do something like that, to start something like that, because it's not necessarily a natural part of the music education. We don't improvise, we're always focused on learning the music on the page as opposed to creating our own. But I developed an injury, a hand injury, and I had to go through a period of rehabilitation, and I had to make a decision about what kind of future I wanted in music, because I wasn't going to be a performer. And I started working in, developing some compositions, got into the composition department, and I found I really enjoyed it. And I had a friend who was interested, who was considering becoming an orchestrator for film and TV, and which was an avenue I hadn't considered. But of course, I'm really passionate about film, so that really lit a spark in me, because I realized now here's the direction, because my natural leanings are really very melodic, and I just felt that that was going to be a really great and exciting fit, because I so loved so much film music. So I went to USC and did the film scoring program there, and I've been chipping away at it ever since.
And sort of when did you, like, obviously there's the educational component,
Yeah.
and then there's that point when you decide, okay, now I'm going to try and make money at this.
Right.
And that's when the whole thing comes in. So what did that kind of consideration look like?
It was very intimidating, very daunting,
Yeah.
because I don't come from a family of business people. So I was inventing it as I went along.
Mhm.
And just joining professional organizations, I was working at the conservatory, my day job, in the office, and one of the a well-established film and TV composer from Toronto, Glenn Morley, was teaching a summer course, and I got to sit in, and that was actually my first professional opportunity. After meeting Glenn, he gave me some work on a project, an animated series called Freaky Stories, and I ended up scoring two of those, and I had a great time. And of course, it was wonderful because I had Glenn there as a safety net, because he was the music, he was supervising the entire thing, so he was accountable. And that was the beginnings. And then I went into an apprenticeship program through my professional organization, and that gave me more experience and gave me the opportunity to actually write on some network television shows, which I would have never had the opportunity to do on my own at that stage. Because
Mhm.
when you're first starting out, you have no experience, you have no credits,
Yeah.
and it really is a field where people need to trust you. and they trust you by being able to see some of the work that you've done. So from there, more contacts were made. I met other composers. Another composer gave me the opportunity, hooked my music up rather with the National Ballet of Canada choreographic workshop program. And so my music was used there. You know, it's that idea, it's so important to maintain relationships and to realize that every person you meet is a potential contact, or someone whom you could help in exchange. I think that's also important, to keep in mind that things shouldn't always be transactional. You should always be thinking about what you
Yeah.
can do for someone else.
Yeah.
I like the saying that people don't remember necessarily what you did, but they remember how you made them feel.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and you want people to have good associations with you as much
Yeah.
as possible.
I want to pick up on what you mentioned about fear, I guess. And I think that
Yeah.
I would say most people that want to take that freelance or small business route, there is a huge fear factor. Maybe that never goes away. One is always a little bit insecure. So, in terms of, I guess maybe think in terms of folks that might be watching that are thinking and have always dreamed that they'd love to work for themselves,
Mm.
and they have a good idea, but it seems insurmountable. It just seems so scary.
Right.
What what advice can you give?
Well, I would say you really have to know yourself. Um, the I would suggest speaking to a lot of people who work in the industry that you want to enter, and assess very, very honestly whether it sounds like a good fit. Ask them about the pros and the cons. Ask them about how they keep going from one season to the next. How they maneuver the ebbs and flows. Do they have another gig? Was there a period of time maybe where they did a day job while trying to get
Right.
their business up on their feet? I know a lot of people who've done it that way, and I certainly have done it that way. And I would also say, um, keep in touch with anyone you speak to. Those people could be the first sources of work. You know, you might want to work under someone in that field before you launch your own business. There's so much right brain, left brain stuff that goes on when you're running a business. In my case, I have to be creative, but I also have to be technical. And then
Yep.
I have to switch and do all those unsavory things like read contracts or market myself or
For
promote
billing,
projects.
invoicing,
Yeah.
contracts.
Don't underestimate the time that's spent doing all those other things. I remember when I was at USC, one of our instructors saying 90% of what you'll be doing will not be writing music, and
Mm.
none of us wanting to believe it, but it's so true. So, really find out what's involved beyond the wonderful thing that you want to be doing, all the ins and outs, and be gracious with the people that you speak to. Say
Mm.
thank you. I hate to have to bring it up, but I think it's just so important when someone gives you their time. In this era of posting things on Facebook and you just get feedback and all you do is hit a like.
Yeah.
When you have a personal exchange with someone, it's so important to actually respond on a personal level to them as well. And it
Yeah.
will reflect well on you. It will be a good thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would sort of add, I guess, that like you, when you're in the creative arts, um, people shouldn't be intimidated by that which they do not know. So billing, invoicing, all this stuff, you can learn it. It's not fun, but there are a multitude of resources online and YouTube videos to learn that stuff. And I would also pick up also on what you just said in terms of being gracious. I think obviously there are some people that do business and think of it in a more transactional fashion. Um, but I agree with you. I believe that in today's day and age, we should connect as people and not as products or offerings. we're
Yes.
not we're not widgets.
Yes.
We're people.
Hmm.
And I do believe, as you said, that if you can put yourself out there, if you can help other people, if you can connect, that will come back to you in some form or another.
And it feels good. I
And
mean,
it feels good. Yeah.
it feels good to be helpful, to know that you've put something positive into the world that
Yeah.
day, you know.
So it's interesting. Now, you've talked obviously about networking, and I guess sort of building the portfolio as you go, and I guess being flexible in terms of things taking you one way and then kind of taking you another way, sometimes unexpectedly. But maybe talk a little bit about some of the major obstacles that you faced.
Right. Well, initially, it's the lack of experience and the rejection that comes from that.
Ah, yes.
Rejection is tough.
Rejection.
And, and yeah, and when you're self-employed, there's rejection all the time.
A lot
And
of it, yes.
yeah, and you eventually, I think you become a little bit kind of numb to it, or at least you become more philosophical and you realize, well, it wasn't my project to have.
Absolutely.
And there's something else. And learning to go where you're wanted and learning to recalibrate and decide that maybe something that you thought you wouldn't do, maybe, that you thought, oh, that's a phase of my life that's over, maybe you want to do that. In my case, I had thought that perhaps concert music was something that I wasn't going to be doing very much, and now I find myself with all kinds of concert music projects, which is really typical. I find whenever I say I'm not going to do something, it comes looking for me. So I find myself with several of these projects, and reframing it and looking at it as such a wonderful opportunity, for your own growth in whatever, for myself anyway, as a composer, and to be able to work with live players, which isn't always the case in my field. That budgets are small and you end up doing a lot of things electronically instead of live. So it's a magnificent opportunity. The other obstacle, the right brain versus left brain, that kind of thing. When you're creative and you're in that groove, the last thing you want to do is stop and answer an email or send out an invoice or read some paperwork or whatever it is that you need to do. That, it's just life, you have to do it. So yeah, I would say those were the key things, and it's a constant struggle. It's a battle within yourself. That right brain, left brain, for sure,
Mhm.
is that, and finding balance. As you know, especially
Balance.
when you work out of home,
Yep.
it's always there, and you're always thinking, and and then I'm sure you disappear into your cubby because you have an idea, in the middle of the evening, and you have to write it down and make some notes. So creating those boundaries, I think, is really, really important as well. And
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to pick up on two things you said and just highlight them. And I think one is, for all the plans that we may go through in planning that perfect freelance life,
Mhm.
we have to be open to the opportunities, and the possibilities, and open to the fact that things probably won't quite go as we thought they will. I mean, I'm always amazed, even in 1 year, when I look back a year, I'm like, I never knew the things that happened would have happened during the course of 12 months. I could have never planned those.
Mhm.
Um, the other thing I wanted to pick up on, which I think is really important, as you said, is when you're a freelancer, creating those boundaries so that there's times to switch the email off. There's times to walk away from the computer, go for a walk, because the work is ever present. It never stops. You can just keep going and going and going and going and never stop. So you have to be careful about burnout, because then that affects your productivity, it affects how you interact with clients, and all that sort of stuff. So you sort of mentioned it a little bit, but Talk to me a little more about how you go about sort of further networking yourself,
Mhm.
whether that was in person pre-COVID, or whether that's the use of social media. What sort of methodologies do you use?
Well, it's funny because I was thinking about that and I was surprised to see how many tools I've used that I've kind of forgotten about. One of the first ones was, of course, professional organizations. And I remember joining a women in film organization in Toronto. And out of that one fantastic networking event, grew about 10 jobs over the years. And I still have those contacts and I still work for those same people. So I found that that was incredible and that was really great. But I also think it's really important to, branch out and try different things because sometimes something that has been working for a while stops working. So you
Yeah,
have
very
to
true.
recalibrate and say, okay, that organization, maybe the networking events aren't working for me anymore. What else can I do? I've also joined, I'm part of the Canadian Music Centre, so that also helps because there's a database of compositions, and that's how some people have discovered me. My website, of course, and interacting on social media and putting my website in the listings of different professional websites as well.
Ah, ah,
People come from various directions. Word of mouth. After I worked for it was a music house doing jingles. People disperse and they go to other companies, and so suddenly I'm getting requests from another company to do that same kind of
yes,
work
yes,
because
yes,
so and
yes,
so from this company has now jumped over to this or has formed his own, and now I'm getting other requests that way, which is
yes.
fantastic. Even from teachers, you keep in touch with teachers. From Sasha, our mutual composition teacher, he introduced me to a violist from the Guelph Symphony, and so we've nurtured that relationship, and I've done two things for the Guelph Symphony, so that has been great. Through COVID, things have changed, and in some ways it's become actually really interesting because the world has become smaller. I've joined the Alliance of Women Film Composers in LA, and they were fabulous through COVID. It was almost weekly meetings, technical workshops, all kinds of wonderful things. So I suddenly broadened my network of professionals, of composers, of colleagues that I have now all over the place, in the States and internationally that I wouldn't have met before. So that's been good too because they promote their composers when you join. So that's, there's profiles there and they're interviewing me right now. So those types of things can be so incredibly helpful. It's so relationships, I think that's really the most important thing because
Mhm.
every one person you meet can be a portal to so many other people. And when someone maybe can't take on a job because they're too busy or it's just not the right time for them and they think of you, they've met you and you might be right, you could get it that way. That's a wonderful way to do it. Or you help someone else on their project because it's too big and there's too much to do. So yeah, I'd say that's how that's a really sorry, a really spiraled
Yeah.
your question. But that's these are things that I've done to make contacts and to market myself.
So, fun stuff now. Tell me about some of the projects that you're currently embroiled in.
Royalden. Well, everything's kind of in the talk phases, but there's a short opera. There's a work for clarinet and string quartet, which is really exciting. I'm really looking forward to that. Next month, I'm having a song performed by Coro San Marco at the Columbus Center, which is really great.
Wow.
And I've been in talks about possibly doing something for them for the future, maybe for next Christmas, their Christmas concert.
Wow.
And there's some possible documentaries. So, everything is kind of slowly, as coming back after COVID. And, in the meantime, other projects that I finished just before COVID are still going strong. The film To the New Girl is still doing really, really well, and I'm really proud of that one. And we were lucky it got its premiere in LA just the month before everything got shut down. So at least that's released out into the ether for me to
Nice,
talk
nice.
about.
And I'll make sure to put a link to your website in the show notes so that people can check you out. And if they want to connect with you on LinkedIn or anything like that, I'll pop that in. So I guess my final question would be, again, if somebody is watching, they're thinking about becoming a freelancer, and you've truly inspired them, even if it isn't in the realm of music, what is the piece of advice that you would give them?
Okay. Talk to anyone you can possibly talk to is in the industry that you want to pursue, to find out what you're in for. I would say that's really important. Maintain those contacts, join professional organizations, always be learning, attend the workshops,
It's a good one.
attend any kind of get together that takes place, follow up with people, make sure that they're aware of what you do, and that you're looking for something, because people can't give you something that you haven't asked for. So I would say that, and I would also say I think there's a tendency in all of us to wait for that golden moment when we feel we're ready.
Yeah.
And I think as the longer we stay in a field, we realize that there's always something that you're not ready for, and to realize that ready comes from doing and from experience and from the confidence of realizing that whatever comes up, you will figure it out.
Yeah.
And to always remember that there are other people out there. If you have a question, reach out. You shouldn't. We tend to be silos, right? We're all by ourselves out here as freelancers, but we need a support system. So try and get a support system around yourself, and keep in touch with them. It's important.
Nice. Thank you so much. I love ending on a really positive note. Your insights are very beautiful, quite frankly, and you are. I'm sure many would aspire to have your mindset and follow in your footsteps. So I really, really appreciate you taking the time, especially given how busy you are.
Well, Stephen, thank you for asking. It was really good for me too to think about my approach and what I might change and what I need to revisit, et cetera, et cetera. Because as a creative, we don't think about these things probably often enough. So thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. You're very welcome. Now, a big thanks to Maria Molinari for taking the time to chat. If you'd like to see more videos like this, hit that subscribe button. You can also catch me on Instagram and Facebook for extra content. And, well, you never miss an episode. Or you can connect with me on LinkedIn. Please do. Those links are below. I'll see you every week with a new video, so please stay tuned. And together, let's solve it like a marketer.